What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Arrow, and today we are going to talk about my league starter for 3.27 Keepers of the Flame, Ice Shot of Penetration, Deadeye. That's right, we are back on ISOP, one of my favorite skills of all time, with some new tech and some new buffs. This build has always thrived on its clear speed, and single target was always questionable until you got some really good gear, but that problem may be solved with a new Wall of Force tech. Now, we're going to get into more details about that, but let's start with the most important thing. Why should you play this build, and why shouldn't you play this build? We'll start with the positives. You should play this build because it's a ton of fun. If you like high clear speed builds, if you don't like aiming, and you really want to lean into the new content, I can highly recommend this build. This build uses mines, but it does not feel like a mine. There are a couple of reasons for that, starting with the fact that you get leech, instant leech, mana on hit, and life on hit from your Rain of Arrows mana forge setup, which is going off multiple times per second. Secondly, it is so snappy and quick that it feels like you're running around using a bow, but instead you don't have to aim, it does that part for you. Third, it's really good for the league content. The kind of stuff that you want to play with this build is anything with a lot of walls or a lot of monsters. The more walls and monsters there are, the more overlaps you can get with the AoEs created by your Ice Shot projectiles. I've made plenty of videos on this build before, so I'm not going to go too deep into the mechanics, but it is a projectile skill with an AoE component, and all of those AoEs can hit the same target, provided you have other things to strike other than the target. We can use a tornado, we can use terrain, we can use other monsters, and we can use the new Wall of Force. The Wall of Force is not yet in my POBs because it does not yet exist in the game, and I can't test it, and I can't even see the final numbers. So we're going to be league starting, proceeding as if it doesn't exist, and then we're going to incorporate it as soon as we can and test all of the things that come along with it. And I have some cool tech to go along with it that we'll get into later in the video. But now let's talk about the reasons you should not play this build. You shouldn't play this build if the most important thing to you is single target damage. If all you care about is killing Ubers and tier 17 bosses in less than 3 seconds, then don't play this build. I know the single target has been a problem for folks in the past that want to do a lot of bossing, and that is totally fine. We are going to get a big improvement, maybe at least 50% more damage on bosses, maybe more, depending on the final numbers of the Wall of Force, but it is not a bossing build. It's made to do Legion, it's made to do Ritual, it's made to do Breach, Harvest, Expedition, anything with a lot of monsters, but pure endgame bossing that requires the highest DPS, this is just simply not the build for you. Number two, if you want to face tank stuff. A lot of people will open up my POB, they'll take a look at the EHP numbers, the max hit numbers, and go, ugh, this build's squishy. Well, they're wrong because you don't play Path of Exile and Path of Building. EHP is about a lot more than just looking at the numbers in POB. Movement speed, damage uptime, how often you're standing still, defensive layers that synergize, and defensive layers that are optimized for the content that you're doing are all way more important than what that total number says under the max hit and EHP. Now, this is not a tanky build. I would never tell someone that it was, but it is tanky for a Deadeye, which usually just has evasion and spell suppression. We incorporate a large amount of Fizz taken as lightning, as much as 30k armor in the endgame, and potentially some more defense once we incorporate the Bloodline Ascendancy, which we will also get into later. But the truth is, the biggest defensive layer of this build is clearing enemies off screen. It certainly doesn't show up in the EHP, whether or not you're getting overrun by mobs based on how quickly you can kill them. And this build kills things off screen so effectively that you will often not even see the monsters you're fighting. But to triple down, this is not a tank. Do not play this build expecting to be able to stand in enemy boss attacks and just face tank melee hits for monsters. If that's what you're looking for, you can get and close the video here, and I'll see you in the next one. But for everybody else, let's talk about the next thing, which is the fact that this league is going to be significantly easier than Mercenaries. And by easier, I mean we're losing 36% map effect on the Atlas tree, which is going to make our endgame maps significantly easier, whether it's tier 16s, 16.5s, or 17s. Secondly, we no longer have a Mercenary with us, which is causing enemy uniques to have 50% more health. It's going to make your damage feel way better, monsters are going to die quicker, and these two things combined are going to make for an easier endgame. Don't be afraid to drop a comment down below asking more about the defensive layers, asking about the offense, asking how the build works. I'll be happy to answer as many as I can between today and tomorrow at league start. But at that point, you're going to have to stop by my stream because I will be streaming many hours a day, twitch.tv/AER0___. I'll be live every single day after league starts. So stop by and drop that Twitch Prime. Number three, the thing that I want to talk about next is the Bloodline Ascendancies. Now, unfortunately, most of them were very disappointing. I was excited about schizophrenic dissociation until we found out that it in fact did not work with any jewels at all. I was holding out a little bit of hope that it would, but in my opinion, it's too much of a downside. so we're not going to be taking that. However, the Breach Bloodline was revealed last night, and it looks pretty good. So there are 3 Breach notables. Tool and Esh look really awesome. Obviously not for this build, but those are really, really exciting, and I'll probably be building around those at some point. But then we have otherworldly appendages. It makes you take 15% damage of different damage types based on the graphs that you have on your back. Obviously, we will want the take 15% less physical damage with at least one Ul graft on you. We're going to take this also for the nearby enemies, take 100% increased damage from graph skills, assuming we can find graphs that do enough single target to be valuable. This build does not need any more help clearing the maps. This build does not need any more help with clear. It only cares about defense and single target. So the fact that we're going to be able to potentially get both of those things means otherworldly appendages will be the #1 choice for us for the Bloodlines. Now, the other graph that we use is going to be whatever has the most single target damage, whether it's lightning, cold, or fire, but we're definitely going to be taking an Ul graft for less physical damage taken, and then doubling the amount of damage from our rune graft. You can't scale rune graft damage in traditional ways with your increased spell damage, increased attack damage, etc., but you can by lowering the monster's defenses. One way is lowering their resistance, but another is to make them take increased damage, which we do a lot of. We use Sniper's Mark, which gives cursed enemies take 34% increased damage from proj hits, and then Focal Point to give us another 75% increased effect of that. This is like a 60% more multiplier to the damage that you'll do to enemies with the rune graphs that you have attached. So I'm holding out hope that we can get some value out of that. And if we do, we're going to have to drop something. Now, in my opinion, Focal Point is way too strong for us to drop, because not only does it give us all that increased damage taken for enemies, but it gives us less damage taken from enemies nearby that enemy, which is actually a huge defensive layer for mapping that is very underrated. It gives us free mark transfer, which is going to save us mana cost, but it also gives us 2 additional arrows. The reason we get 2 additional arrows is because Sniper's Mark gives us 2 splits. Now, we get splits from Fury Valve, but we also get splits from Sniper's Mark. These things are additive. When you hit a monster with your mine, it's going to split into the number of projectiles that you get from Sniper's Mark and from Fury Valve at the same time. So Sniper's Mark normally gives us 2. Mark on hit drops us below that 2 because of that 16% reduced effect. But then we get 75% here, which is going to get us over 2 breakpoints, which is 2 additional arrows. That is like endless munitions with all of the other upsides of Focal Point. So this is undroppable. Obviously, Gathering Winds is, but Farshot may not be as good as it was in 3.26. The reason for that is because with the Wall of Force, depending on how powerful it is, it's going to be taking hits from projectiles at very, very close range, which is going to lose the value of Farshot. So after my testing, should it be the case that a lot of our damage is happening up close, we're having really good uptime of the wall, Farshot becomes not very strong, which means we're going to drop both of these 2 nodes, take Wind Ward, and then take the Ascendancy for even more defense and single target damage from the Breach Bloodline. What Wind Ward does is give us a ton of less damage taken, 40% when you have full Tailwind, which we always do because we throw so many mines per second. This is going to be very, very high uptime, particularly if we maximize our investment into evasion, which I plan on doing. Should it be the case that we go this route, the most important thing will be not getting hit, which means we are going to go full evasion. We're going to drop all of our investment in Fizz taken as. We're going to drop our investment in armor, and we're going to go max evade. We're going to get to 95 full uptime evasion. We're going to use the 15% less Fizz damage taken from the Ul Ascendancy, Wind Ward with maximum uptime through the use of acrobatics. So evade at 95% and dodge all spells at 75% becomes a very efficient way to take way less damage. Investing into Fizz taken as and armor on top of evasion is a lot of points. This is going to simplify our defense, of course make us vulnerable when our evasion doesn't proc and when our tailwind is down. But in my experience, this is a very, very nice way to play the game. So acrobatics is kind of a meme. It has been for a while. And the reason is because spell suppression is so strong. However, spell suppression just got nerfed pretty significantly from 50% reduction to 40%. In my opinion, acrobatics is back on the table for a build that uses something like Wind Ward. I wouldn't take it over regular suppression still, but if you're going to do Wind Ward, you're going to keep up your tailwind more often using acrobatics over spell suppression. And what does this mean? This means you're going to get hit less, which means you're going to have more speed and more damage from tailwind. Now, this is all contingent on a lot of different things, but this is my plan in the endgame, should we be able to get enough single target out of rune graphs to make it worth taking that node. Next, let's talk about the Wall of Force. This is the big elephant in the room. The reason that we're playing Ice Shot of Penetration again is the addition of this skill, whose functionality has been out of the game for quite some time. You used to be able to collide projectiles with frost walls, and it was just deemed too powerful by GGG, so they took it out of the game. Now, many years later, they've brought it back in a more nerfed, nuanced version. It's not an infinite number of projectiles, there's a less damage multiplier on them, and there are reasons to not use the wall. But for this build, the wall will be very, very strong. We saw a level 6 version which had 13 projectiles colliding with the wall, which I believe is scalable, and had 27% less damage, which is likely scalable as well. We don't know what the quality does. We don't know what level scaling does. So it's hard to say how good the wall will be. But at the very least, even the level 6 version of the gem in this build will be quite good. But there are many, many ways to improve your wall and make it much more worth using. The number one way is attaching it to a trap. There's a note on the tree called Over Prepared that says skills which throw traps have +1 cooldown use. Now, I've tested this. I've linked my Flame Dash here, which is a cooldown skill, to a trap, as you can see with trap support here. So we can throw down a trap that uses Flame Dash. It looks kind of ridiculous, but we know that it works with cooldown skills. We can also add another cooldown use with Second Wind support. And now you see we go from 3 standard Flame Dash casts to 5 total. So that means we'll be able to get 3 walls at a minimum, maybe more depending on quality. Even greater than that, the next biggest hurdle for Wall of Force is its 9-second cooldown, which is a pretty long time. However, Advanced Traps gives us access to 107% CDR at level 20. 107% is quite a bit and more than you can get really in any other place. So that means, as you can see here, if we take this out, Flame Dash has a 3.1 second cooldown time, but if we add this in, its cooldown goes to 2.15 seconds, which means it does work. So I've tested all of this stuff in game. It does in fact work. We just are going to have to swap out this Flame Dash for a Wall of Force. I don't know if this is all going to be worth it yet. We're going to have to get in game and test it. So please bear with me on the updating of the guide. Make sure that you check out the stream. I will be talking about everything constantly there so you can see what I'm working on. But we do know all this stuff works, and I'll find a way to get these gems in. I already have some very, very basic gem swaps in place in the POB under like a theory skill gem section. So you can take a look at that. But it may be the case that I don't want to use all 4 of these links. It doesn't feel quite as good. The more that wall gives us benefits, the more I'm going to want to invest in it. The Rune Graph of Time says 20% chance for skills to not consume a cooldown on use. If you can get enough cooldown uses and you can get the cooldown short enough, this then becomes worth using. The next thing I want to talk about is to make sure that you use the FearlessDumb0 Tech to make sure that you are detonating as many mines per second as possible. FearlessDumb0 found out, I believe, last year through some dedicated testing that automation has a breakpoint that we are 2% away from. So make sure to get 2% CDR into your build, whether it's from your boot implicit or from an Abyss Jewel. But as you can see, there's a huge difference in the number of mines per second. This is a very, very big deal for getting maximum damage out of your build. I will link this video in the description. So the most important thing about this video is this. Fury Valve is way easier to get than we previously thought. So what you'll see here are the results of hundreds and hundreds of div card openings that we did in standard. Big shout out to my buddy Heavens for helping us source all of these cards. So what we did is we opened around 750 sets of the Haunting Shadows div card. I wanted to get an idea of how common each one of the results were and what the expected value might be on day 1 or day 2. I know that Fury Valve is one of the results, and the cards are generally not considered very valuable, and they come off a lot of filters very quickly. But I think we've all been wrong. The most common result is the Mother's Embrace tied with the Fury Valve. There's only 4 possible things that you can get. You have those 2 results. This is an absolutely worthless belt. Then you have an Astral Protector, which we saw about 7% of the time, and a Warrior's Legacy, which we also saw about 7% of the time. I have a bunch of data analysts in my chat who were able to do a lot of the statistics for me, but it appears to be the case that it is around a 43%, 43%, 7%, 7% split. So these 2 rings, which both keep some value on day 1, day 2, and possibly going forward, are fairly rare at about 7% apiece, but they both will return you a good amount of chaos. The Mother's Embrace is not worth the pixels it's printed on, so that'll just get tossed into the dust compactor. And then number 4, you have the Fury Valve. Fury Valve can be anywhere from 20C to 1.5 divines on day 1, day 2. but it looks like you'll be able to potentially farm your own, and definitely in SSF you can farm your own, making the most difficult thing to get much, much more accessible. So here we have this Haunting Shadows card. It is a metamorph item. There's only 4 left, as you can see here, and it was found in the map Foundry, which is no longer in. So the one downside to this is we don't actually know where this is going to show up yet, but that sort of information is usually figured out very quickly, and it will be in a new map in 3.27. So if you want an almost 50% chance to get a Fury Valve, you can turn in 4 of these cards and try to get one. And it looks like you have around a 57% chance of making money. So that is going to be it for this video. So there is a full max roll guide, which is currently updated, but not fully updated for all the things that we're going to be testing and trying in the new league. So be sure to subscribe, keep refreshing that max roll guide. Things are going to change. But because I don't have access to the gem or even the numbers, I can't test it. It's not proven how it works. But at the very least, we know that we're going to include it. And I will make updates as soon as I can so you guys can all have something to follow. So make sure you stop by my stream, twitch.tv/AER0__. I'll be live every single day on League Star for as many hours as I can muster. Subscribe to the YouTube where I'm going to be putting out lots of videos this coming League Start. Come over and drop that Twitch Prime and make sure that you comment, like, and subscribe to the video down below. Good luck to everybody on League Start, no matter what you decide to play. Thank you for watching. And as always, take care.